This morning on Press Pass, jury selection in the capital murder trial of Nasser Hamad is underway. The Howland man plans to argue self-defense in the deadly shootout at his Route 46 home earlier this year. Protesters gathered near Courthouse Square outside those court proceedings this last week. That group believes that Hamad acted within his rights the day that gunfire broke out in late February. So here to weigh in on the trial as it is still in its infant stages, our legal analyst, Matt Mangino. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So this is a trial that we're going to be covering wall to wall here. I remember the first few days that we were covering this and how it unfolded in the community and just the different interviews that we had. This is a high profile case. This is something that a lot of people in the area have already heard about. So it's no surprise that seating a jury is going to take some time so far. We're about 4 days in. Do you expect that to be a challenge?
Well, it could be a challenge, and that's precisely why they filed this motion for a change of venue. And this is the time where you make that decision as a judge. If you can't seat a panel based on people knowing about the case or having opinions about the case, at some point the judge may say, well, we can't seat a jury here in Warren County. We're going to have to look elsewhere or bring jurors in from another county. Okay, so they had about 170 jurors in the potential jurors in the jury pool, and that's the most I've ever seen. They had standing room only in the courtroom. It was wall to wall. Is that normal to bring in that many people to try to seat a 12-member jury plus some extras just in case? Well, this is a capital case, which of course has another dimension to it when you pick a jury, whether the jurors will be death qualified, and then it's a high profile case. So obviously the court has some concern that they're going to go through a number of potential jurors before they get down to that number 12. If they can't, then they have to look elsewhere.
Okay, so you're saying they still have to jump through the first hoop before we get any further in terms of how we're going to cover this trial.
Yes, you got to see.
Well, we'll be watching that throughout the rest of the week. When I talked to the court, they expected this to take at least a few days, and we're already into that point. So we'll see where we get early tomorrow and into Tuesday. Now, we know Hamad is expected to say self-defense in this case. He's going to argue self-defense. When you look at the case, you wrote a column not too long ago. How likely is it that that is something that he can stand on? Are there any cases that set a precedent in the past that are similar to this one in any way, shape, or form?
Well, he has, as a defendant, the right to raise the defense of justification, but he has the responsibility to prove that. That's one of the few situations in the court where the burden of proof shifts to the defendant. And the defendant has to prove by a preponderance of the evidence that he was justified in the action that he took. There are two different ways of looking at this. One is through the Castle Doctrine. You know, it doesn't appear to me that the Castle Doctrine applies. The Castle Doctrine says someone has to break into your home or be breaking into your home, and then you have justification to use lethal force. The second is self-defense generally, which has been around for a long time. And in order to assert successfully self-defense, you have to show, number one, that you didn't bring about this situation, number two, that you used the appropriate amount of force, and number three, that you retreated if you had the opportunity to do that. Now, what we know just by news accounts is that Nasser went into his house after there was a fight in the front yard, got a gun, and shot at these individuals while they were in a vehicle getting ready to leave. Mm-hmm. That's a tough justification defense to prove. You know, we also know that he invited these people over, or they had exchanged Facebook messages, you know, prior to that. So it's going to be, he has the right to raise it, but he has to prove it by a preponderance of the evidence.
Any surprise to you that the judge gave the green light to the social media postings to be admitted into evidence for this case? Are you surprised by that? Especially because that could factor into things, though it sounds like maybe not.
Well, I think the jury needs to have some context. And context is, why did these people come there, and why did this you know, result from that initial conduct? So I think the Facebook post provides some context, and I think you're going to have things that could be used or viewed by the jury against the defendant and against the victims by looking at these Facebook posts.
All right, well, we're going to be following this story wall-to-wall coverage here on 21 News online and on air. I'll be in the courtroom along with my other colleagues, including Michelle Nix. So I really appreciate your time this morning and your insight, because a lot of questions surrounding a story that really caught a lot of attention in our area. We'll see if they can seat a jury in time to get this trial started. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Steve, I'll send it over to you.